Hi there, my name is Rebecca Renwick, and I am presenting on my Contemporary Beliefs Project Part 2 on interpersonal communication. So, I would like to just start out with my interview questions that I asked my interviewees. I had 15 questions, and as I am briefly reading these to you, I would like you to kind of consider what your answers would be to these questions. So, question number one, without looking it up, what do you think the definition of interpersonal communication is? Question number two, are you a good communicator and why? Question number three, I read them 4 principles to interpersonal communication, and that these principles are number 1, interpersonal communication is inescapable. Number 2, interpersonal communication is irreversible. 3, it is complicated. And 4, it is contextual. Which one of these 4 principles sticks out to you most and why? Question number 4, what impacts people's interpersonal communication skills? Question number 5, do you know your skills? Could your skills use improvement and how so? Question number 6, describe a recent conflict that you recently encountered. What was the resolution of that conflict? Question number 7, how would you rate your effectiveness in getting along with others on a scale of 1 to 10? 1 being not well and 10 being very well. Question number 8, why did you rate yourself that way? Question number 9, are there any difficulties you have in experiencing working with others and what are they? Question number 10, do you think interpersonal communication skills are teachable or learned over time? 11, I just asked to name a few examples of interpersonal communication skills. 12, what is the importance of interpersonal communication skills to you? 13, would you consider yourself an emotionally intelligent person? 14, do you believe everyone communicates the same way? And lastly, question number 15, is there anything else you would like to add on about interpersonal communication? So, if this were all the evidence that I had on my chosen topic of interpersonal communication, what would I say are the primary understandings of or beliefs about this issue in contemporary culture? So from the data I collected 3 primary understandings of interpersonal communication. I also collected one challenge that a lot of people noted, but I'm just going to save that one for later. So the 3 primary understandings that I found of interpersonal communication are that it is a skill that is developed over time. It is easy to see in others but difficult to see in ourselves. And that it is important to use in the workplace. So to go more in depth on those 3 things, number 1, it's a skill developed over time. I learned from my interviewees is that as you grow in your career and your relationships, you become more effective in your abilities to use interpersonal communication. And one of my interviewees made a really good point, and I quote, you don't really hear about it until it becomes an important part of your life. So number 2, out of the primary things I noted, that it is easy to see in others but difficult to see in ourselves. So I understand from these 3 people that in the workplace and in relationships, you can see the ways that other people are communicating, but you cannot see your own. And I quote one of my interviewees is that it is hard to understand your effectiveness in communication unless someone tells you. And I really agree with that one, that it's easy to see it in other people, but ourselves, we don't understand it. And lastly, out of the primary things that I noted was that it is important to use in the workplace. And so out of my 3 interviews, I concluded that by using interpersonal communication in the workplace, you are able to communicate effectively. And I quote one of my interviewees that it can contribute to your success. So out of those 3 primary things I noted in my interviews, they all also mentioned this. And I don't think in any way I contributed to this to come out of their mouths, but they all said that with phones and computers, people are losing their interpersonal communication skills or not gaining them at all. And by what they mean and what I'm interpreting and by what they have said is that children these days, are texting, emailing, Snapchatting, Instagramming, Facebook messaging, all this stuff that does not involve human to human interaction without a screen in between us, that these kids are not learning the importance of interpersonal communication. And that I am concluding from my 3 interviews that this can affect these children over time or these people over time and how they're building relationships and how they will communicate effectively. So, for my own personal reflection, I think by the data I collected from my interviews, but as well as my sources, I do want to note that a lot of my sources I used as examples in my part 1 project were based on examples that I saw at work. And a lot of things, actually most of my examples came from the workplace. And that's where I see interpersonal communication being, at its best work, is at work. And just super quick story on how it's affected me is that I'm a brand new manager. I've been in a new management position for about 4 months now. Recently promoted. I went from, the employee to the employer, basically. And it's been such a huge transition for myself. And I'm understanding that I need to brush up on my leadership skills. I need to brush up on how to be a manager. I don't know. I don't understand this kind of stuff. And I think it's super applicable to interpersonal communication, that if you don't use it, you're not going to understand it and you're not going to use it effectively when you need to use it. And just one super quick example is recently I butted heads with someone at work and we weren't seeing eye to eye because we both communicate in different ways. And finally, just recently, I called a one-on-one with them and I just said, hey, you don't understand me and I don't understand you because we're communicating in 2 different ways. We come from 2 different backgrounds. We have, I interpret your body language, your expressions in a different way than you're interpreting mine. And I think it's important that right now we sit down and have each other's undivided attention and talk everything out, talk out our issues, just so we can understand each other's communication styles better. And by having this conversation with them, I was able to see how I can communicate more effectively with them as a person. That how they interpret words is different than how I do. And I'm happy that we had this conversation so that they could see that I interpret things in a different way just because of my communication styles. So, in conclusion, out of this data, out of my research I conducted with this interpersonal communication, I think interpersonal communication is something that is a teachable skill. And I also think it is something that is super applicable to the workplace, and that in order to be successful in the workplace, you need to have interpersonal communication skills. And, even if you don't, that's fine. They are teachable, they are learnable, they are, they're there, they're able to be taught. So thank you for watching this.